Hello and welcome back to what is now Season 6 of the Premier League years here on Football Manager 22. As I've now started to do, for the first part of the video we're just going to take a really quick look back at how last season ended as a little refresher. Chelsea have gone back-to-back on Premier League titles, this time winning it by a full 11 points. So they are becoming a very dominant force. Champions League spots, as you can see, Liverpool, Man City, Arsenal, Man United, Newcastle for Europa League, and Spurs finally return to Europe as they'll play Europa Conference football. The three sides we said farewell to at the end of last video, Bournemouth, Fulham and Brentford. So now it is time to see who will be replacing them as I find out as well. So as I browse through here, I believe team number one is Brighton. They have come straight back up after just one season in the Championship. They win the league under Thiago Motta. He kept his job after the relegation because he was brought in midway through their relegation season. Gets them back up, Brighton straight away back in. I had decently high hopes for Brighton and then all of a sudden they got relegated. So I think they can stay up this season. I reckon there's a relatively good chance of that. Oh, not again. Oh, not again. Yeah, again. The last time Norwich stayed in the same division was 2017-18 to 2018-19. Ever since then, it has been promotion and relegation between the Premier League and the Championship. Norwich comes second under Vincenzo Montella. Again, another manager who came in midway through the relegation season, kept his job, and then gets Norwich automatically promoted alongside Brighton. So our playoff winning team, who is our playoff winning team? I think it might be Crystal Palace. And indeed it is. So it's Palace, Brighton and Norwich who come back to the Premier League. All three relegated teams from the 25-26 season are straight back. Palace only finished 5th under Antonio Conte, so actually 3 Italian managers enter into the Premier League with their championship sides. Although Thiago Motta is kind of Brazilian, but took Italian as his nationality, so yeah, 3 Italian managers. We'll look at Crystal Palace and see how they got through the playoffs and who they beat in the playoffs. Were there any interesting teams? They beat Blackburn 3-2 on aggregate in the semi-finals, and then they beat West Brom 3-1 in the playoff final. I don't think we've seen West Brom yet in this entire save. That's the closest we've come to seeing them than making a playoff final. But again, we still don't see West Brom, which is quite interesting. We haven't seen Blackburn for a good 3 seasons now, except for that one Europa Conference League run when they won the League Cup whilst being in the Championship. But there we go then. Norwich, Brighton and Palace all return to the Premier League. And it's getting pretty familiar with the same sort of teams. We know we've kind of got a big 9 at the moment where we've got the regular sort of Chelsea, Arsenal, Liverpool, Man City, Man United, Spurs. But then we've sort of had Newcastle, Leicester and Leeds added into that. And then Villa kind of acting as the looking outside to in from 10th. And then from there down, it's very much kind of random of who finishes where. So I think the main point for the Premier League this season, or main points, 1, can anybody topple Chelsea, who are now the powerhouse, dominant force in the league? And then can anyone break into the top 10? Because we're starting to get a fairly solidified top half. So I want to see if somebody like, I don't know, Sheffield United are getting close. Burnley had a better season last year, if they could push in. Even if West Ham or Wolves could recover themselves. Or Everton, who really haven't done anything except kind of start really badly every year. But what we can move on to now is to look at, well, we'll look at manager movements. Leicester still haven't actually hired a new manager yet. Ian Corley is still there. I assume they are going to hire somebody because it still says caretaker. But we still wait on who's going to come in there. So we'll find out when we get to the September stop-off. The only other thing to do is to take a look at some transfers and see if there are any very early ones. This has been the regular role of Chelsea, but not this time. Or, I was going to say not this time. Chelsea are here. Chelsea have gone to Leicester and brought in Wesley Fofana for £78 million. I said that if Chelsea were going to do anything, it would be to strengthen the back line because they've spent so long bringing in attacking players. They do that with Wesley Fofana, just 26 years of age, turns 27 in December. I really just don't see how Chelsea get toppled, especially with this strengthening move that they've made. This is a very good move. I mean, it gets Leicester a lot of money as well, so maybe Leicester can spend that and develop through this season as well. But the one that catches the eye is the biggest transfer. Well, yeah, it's the biggest transfer in a while, in the whole year. Benjamin Sesko, a very popular young striker in Football Manager. We welcome him into the Premier League. He is absolutely unreal. And he joins Manchester City from Bayern Munich for £104 million that could potentially rise to 125. 26 goals last season. His real breakout season. That must have been a January transfer and got 5 in 7, then 16. You think, okay, that's pretty decent. Yeah, Sesko has arrived and Manchester City bring him to the Premier League, knowing that they need to do quite a lot of work to try and catch Chelsea. Vincent Kompany in charge heading into his second season as Manchester City manager. He knows that he's got a lot of work to do to get that team anywhere near competing for the title again. We see the third biggest transfer early on in this summer window is Newcastle, signing Owen Wijndal, the Dutch left-back. Why did I feel like that had already happened? I think they must have signed a Dutch left-back before. That name rings a bell. A big £55 million from RB Leipzig. So the Bundesliga is getting remarkably weaker with the transfers of Sesko and Wijndal. You see that Wijndal started off a little rough, but has really grown into his role as a regular left-back in the Bundesliga. Now heads to Newcastle. Newcastle's next aim has to be to push for top 4. They made Europa League last season in 6th. This year they've got to make that move up towards the Champions League spots. If we look a little further down, we find Pedro Gonçalves is the next biggest transfer to Liverpool at £40.5 million. He's now 28 years of age. A very creative midfielder. I say that with 13 passing, but I mean 16 technique, 15 vision. Feels pretty creative to me. Actually looks more like a striker, to be honest. But he comes in at Liverpool. I'm trying to remember who the Liverpool manager is. Yes, it's Stefano Pioli, because they brought in Pep Guardiola and then he left to Juve last season, didn't he? So Pioli enters his second season in charge of Liverpool. We go a little bit further down. We actually find Burnley spending £30 million on Granada's Spanish midfielder Monchu. Not a player I'm familiar with. Looks like a very, very talented player. It looks like a very good signing. 30 million, obviously a lot more than we regularly see Burnley spend. They did have a better season last season. We're pushing towards the top half. So obviously they've now decided that's their next big aim under Dean Smith, who I think is entering either his second or third season with Burnley. I think it might be his second. We see Sheffield United spending possibly upwards of £30 million. So the transfers are starting to get really big here. Lisandro Martinez. Now he is the Ajax centre-back. He is a very good player. Actually went to Real Madrid in 2024 for £40 million. Was mostly bit part. It started out all right and very quickly dropped off. And now £28.5 million initial fee to head to Sheffield United. If they were under Chris Wilder and they were playing the wide centre-back formation, I think Lisandro Martinez would fit into that beautifully. Obviously, they're actually managed by Paul Heckingbottom, who has been their manager throughout this whole save. I think Sheffield United have been here almost every single... I think they've been here every season. They got promoted in the Quicksim season. They've been here ever since. They actually play 4-4-2. So I don't think Martinez is going to be able to get too far forwards. We have a look. Yeah, they won the championship in 2021-22, and they've hung around in the Premier League ever since. They did break top 10 a couple times, 12th last season. So they could be a team looking to push on as well. They bring in Martinez, as we mentioned there. If we look down a little bit further, we find Fulham selling a player to Spurs in Marcelino Nunez. This is somebody I have mentioned a couple times. He's appeared in a couple of the statistics before. Very, very creative midfielder. Can get forward as well. Spurs bring him in as they build their squad to prepare to actually take part in Europe for once. They want to make that a regular deal. So they make a move there. We find Spurs also bringing in Lucas Verissimo, 31-year-old centre-back coming in from Benfica, who's been there the whole save. Very, very good centre-back. Obviously being 31 on the slightly older end of things, but he's going to give you at least a good couple years. So Spurs definitely going for now performance over developing in the future. We will go a little bit further down, but it looks like we're mostly through the transfers that we would be completely interested in. If I'm Ryan Christie has made another move. So I was surprised when he made his move when he was about 30. Now he's 32. He makes a move to West Ham, who are in their second season back in the Premier League. They try to avoid relegation a bit better than they did in their first season. I think they were 16th in the end, I believe. So they want to try and do better this season and push themselves up. We find Watford, another team that we have not seen in this save, though that's actually Bournemouth selling a player. George Johnston. Although I thought, yeah, Bournemouth went down, so actually this is just a championship transfer. I just hadn't heard of him, so I wondered if he was a new gen. He is not. I think that's... Well, I was going to say that's where we ended, but actually Southampton have brought in a player for 9.5 million in Elias Solberg from Real Betis, a Norwegian winger who is only 23 years of age. Doesn't look brilliant, but looks like, yeah, he's listed as a squad player, could be decent depth. So that's where we'll hold off on the June section. So we see the teams that have come up. We've seen a couple of the big transfers that have gone down early in the window. We're now going to jump to September, where we'll have a couple of things to look over. We'll have the European groups. We'll have the first sort of 3 games of the season, and then the rest of the summer transfer window to cover as well. So we now jump forward to the 3rd of September. The summer transfer window is now closed. And as normal, we're going to start by looking at the European group stages for the Premier League sides. We start in the Europa Conference League, which sees Tottenham involved, and they get Group A, so no scrolling required, where they will face Metalist Kharkiv, Asteras Tripolis, and AZ Alkmaar of Holland. Should be a reasonably easy group for Spurs. I see them topping that, and I'm going to put AZ Alkmaar for 2nd. Let's say Tripolis 3rd and Kharkiv in 4th. Moving up to the Europa League, there are 2 Premier League sides represented in the group stage. Newcastle are drawn in Group B, and it is a very tricky group with Atalanta, Sparta Prague, and Hertha Berlin in that group. Hertha Berlin, in Football Manager, always so much money, love spending that cash on big-name players, so they will be a tricky game. Atalanta, one of the better teams in Italy over recent years, and then Sparta Prague, just a tricky fixture in general. I think Newcastle will still come through. We've seen the big transfers that they've been making, but I think Hertha Berlin might win the group. Newcastle in 2nd, and that's Atalanta 3rd and Sparta Prague 4th. We do have to scroll down to find Manchester United because they are drawn in Group G alongside KRC Genk, Victoria Pilsen, and Lechia Gdansk. It's a much easier group for Manchester United. I see them topping that without too many problems. The rest of the group is quite tricky, though. So I feel like Genk, Pilsen and Gdansk are all kind of on a level. I'm going to go with Genk to take second, and I'm actually just going to keep it in the order that it's been drawn. Pilsen for third and Gdansk in fourth. And finally, the Champions League, where there are 4 Premier League representatives. We don't actually find the first of those until Group D, where Manchester City will face Fenerbahce, Lazio and Celtic. I think it's a group that Man City should top. I'm going to go with Lazio in second, Fenerbahce third, Celtic third, and then Fenerbahce to finish bottom of that group. Group E sees Arsenal in a very, very tough group with Inter Milan, Atletico Madrid, and Lille. I don't think Arsenal are going to get through this group. I think Inter might top it because we've seen Inter do very well in recent years. I'm going to go Inter Milan, Atletico Madrid, Arsenal for third, so I think they'll make Europa League football, and then Lille to come bottom of that group. Chelsea start in Group F alongside Juventus, Anderlecht and Rangers. I feel like Chelsea and Juve have drawn each other a lot in the group stages. They're going to be the top 2. I'm going to stick with that order. Chelsea have been England's best for the past couple of years. They've been Europe's best last season. They are the holders of the Champions League. So we're going to say Chelsea, Juventus. I'm going to go with Rangers for third and Anderlecht to finish bottom of the group, even though Anderlecht did win a European competition a couple seasons ago. I can't remember if it was the Europa League or the Europa Conference League. It was one of the two. Finally, Liverpool have Group H, and I will say I think, have got the nice group. They get Porto, Gladbach, and Midtjylland. Porto won the Europa League last season. Gladbach, kind of in and out with Germany. And then Midtjylland, congratulations to them for qualifying for the Champions League group stages. I see them finishing bottom of that group, though. I think it's going to look as it does right now. Liverpool to top it, Porto, Gladbach, and then Midtjylland. We then return to the Premier League, and first things first, we find out who Leicester's new manager is. They have gone with Viktor Goncharenko, who comes over from Celtic, actually. Started with Krasnodar Bordeaux, has gone through a national team management, was at Celtic for a season, now comes in as Leicester manager. Hey, Leicester hiring a Celtic manager. That's original. And now we get to spot the transfers that have gone down since the turnover of the season. And Manchester City are not joking around. They have gone and brought in Benjamin Sesko and Federico Chiesa. Man City want their title back. They've missed out on it for 2 years now. They are not messing about. Chiesa, obviously a fantastic player, is now 29 years of age. Will actually turn 30 next month, but you're going to get a good few seasons out of him anyway. Looking through the top part of this list, we actually see a lot of transfers out, including the biggest of those being Curtis Jones, leaving Liverpool for PSG, which is a very interesting move. We see Gabriel Menino leaving Spurs as he heads to AC Milan. Alan Saint-Maximin is gone from Newcastle, though he is now 30. I was going to say he must be approaching that. Yeah, he heads to Lazio for nearing 50 million, so a decent move there. Thomas Lemar has left Spurs. He heads off to Serie A as well. There's quite a few transfers out, as well as Maxime Lopez and Marcus Asensio both heading to AS Monaco. A transfer that we skipped through, though, Brennan Johnson. This is a huge move and a slightly controversial move if you're a Nottingham Forest fan. Obviously, Brennan Johnson, currently a young star player at Nottingham Forest. He headed off to Brentford quite early on in the save, £17 million. Played a few Premier League seasons with them. Wasn't particularly standout, but he was consistent in a side that was playing consistent Premier League football. And now he makes a huge £49 million move to Forest's rivals, Leicester City. So Leicester using some of the money that they got for Wesley Fofana to bring in Brennan Johnson. As we work our way down this list a little bit more, we find the next biggest transfer is Liverpool on a new-gen 21-year-old midfielder, Martin, coming in from Villarreal. So he actually generated in at Las Palmas in the very first season. So they're quite happy that they got him. They ended up making £7.25 million on him, which I feel like for a second-tier side in Spain is a pretty big sum of money. He played reasonably well in the one full season that he got at Villarreal, but now a £40 million move to Liverpool. Curtis Jones out, Martin in. It's an interesting swap that's been made there. Chelsea also making a £38 million move for Mattia Vitti, a 25-year-old Italian centre-back coming in from Fiorentina, a youth player at Empoli. I mean, again, I said Chelsea probably needed to strengthen defensively. They did that with Wesley Fofana. They now bring in Mattia Vitti as well to be a squad player. Physically very impressive, mentally very impressive as well. I mean, technically, you can't really pick too many holes in there either. He's just a very, very good player. How much he ends up playing for Chelsea, I don't know. He has played 3 times, though, already. So I assume he has started every game for them this season, which is good to see. So that means a VT and Fofana partnership at the back. That's a very strong pairing right there. You see, Alexander Nubel makes a very interesting move. So we knew that he was Aston Villa's #1 keeper. That lasted all of 1 season. And Sheffield United, who I've said seem to change goalkeeper every single season, they do it again. I mean, it's worked for them, but why again? Alexander Nubel is in. I mean, Walter Benitez was physically their captain, but apparently no. It's now Nubel. He's played very well to start with in the season. We also skipped over Musa Barrow. Brighton with a massive transfer. We knew Brighton had money, but that is a lot on Musa Barrow. Atalanta, Bologna, and then Feyenoord. Feyenoord picking up a lot of money there. We'll see how Musa Barrow gets on. I'm not convinced by that one. Looks a pretty darn good player, but it's a lot of money for a club like Brighton. We see Timothy Castan heading off to Leeds for over £30 million. He's now 31, turning 32. We see Weston McKennie joining the Premier League. He comes in at Chelsea. I was going to say, I imagine as a squad player, so they bring in more depth in a man who played over 200 Serie A games for Juventus. Very good midfielder. Obviously, getting up there slightly in age. Man City with a move for a new-gen left-back, Herculano Franco, coming in from Sporting Lisbon. We know Man City love a good Portuguese player, not so much as Wolves, but still, they have got quite a few. They keep that theme going. He's very, very solid defensively. Has got some pretty good mentals in pretty good places, and physically, I think is where he really stands out. He looks like a very solid player, and if Man City can get him enough game time, he can certainly develop. Slightly worried these are in the under-23s, though. He has played a senior game, and he played very, very well. But he is listed in the under-23s. That's slightly concerning. We see Merih Demiral heading to Arsenal from Hertha Berlin, a 29-year-old Turkish centre-back. We actually see somebody that I looked him up a while ago because we saw his brother, is it Steven Sessegnon, moved to or had a transfer that we noticed, and it made me think, where's Ryan Sessegnon? And we saw he was at Celtic. He is now back in the Premier League with West Ham. So we'll see how Ryan Sessegnon gets on. Still only 27. So he's still got quite a few good years ahead of him. We see Kekai is gone from the Premier League. He's heading off to the Bundesliga with Borussia Dortmund, still only 24 years old. And wow, Man City did not get a lot for him. 26.5 million. How much did they pay for him? They paid 8.5. in the Quick Sim season. So they have made a profit on him. I mean, he ended up playing for Sunderland for 2 seasons. He played League One football. What? Not exactly what I expected, but okay. Goodbye, KKI. You see Robin Gosens entering, though, with Manchester City. He is now 33, so Man City getting a bit of depth. Actually, they're calling him an important player. So Gosens will play quite a few games. See Leicester bringing in Ibrahima Konate, still only 28 years of age. He comes in after 1 season at Bournemouth. We look down a little further. Everton's biggest transfer of the window is Lewis Travers, the Blackburn midfielder. Over 300 games, league games for Blackburn. Wins the League Cup with them as well. Has a couple of Premier League seasons in there too. Everton decide to make him their biggest move at £23 million. Travers hasn't been exceptional. I think he started off really well and had 1 good season here in 25-26. It's kind of been average outside of that. But we'll see how he steps up at Everton. Crystal Palace's biggest transfer of the window is Musa Wagwe, a man we've seen quite a few times. He just can't stick at one club, can he? See Barcelona, then to OGC Nice. We saw him head to Leicester, which is where we first saw him. Then we saw him leave to head to Sporting Lisbon. Now he's back with Crystal Palace, and they had to spend $22 million to get him. Has not had a good start in his first 3 games with Palace. If we look a little further down, we can see Valentin Rozier's gone again. Another name we've seen quite a lot of. We find Reading's biggest transfer is Ben Brereton Diaz, still only 28 years of age. Another guy who had over 300 league games for Blackburn. So Blackburn are starting to lose that core of players that they had for a good period of time. Travers now gone and Brereton Diaz now gone. So it'll be interesting to see if we do see Blackburn return anytime soon. It's Reading that pick up Brereton Diaz as they try to become a regular Premier League side. We see Aston Villa's biggest transfer is Morgan Rogers, the ex-Manchester City forward. Yes. So he ended up going to Rangers for just under $5 million. And Villa bring him in for 19.5. So that's a reasonably big transfer for a player that probably has a few question marks, especially with sort of only 10 and 8 in his seasons in Scotland. They're not brilliant numbers. We then go a bit further down. We notice sort of 2 or 3 more sides that we haven't mentioned yet. Norwich's biggest transfer is £17.5 million, again to Blackburn, to bring in Hugo Felix. So Blackburn only had this guy for 1 season, scored 8 goals in 29 games. So had a pretty good year overall, 8 goals, 7 assists. Norwich stump up 4 extra million to what Blackburn paid, and he comes in with Norwich. So Blackburn are really, really being drained. We see Southampton here as well, as they also went to Blackburn to bring in Mason Holgate. Holgate had played almost 100 league games for Blackburn, had a couple spells with Fulham as well. Now 30 years of age, so a player older than I thought he was. But he comes in at Southampton for £14 million. And Wolves are here as well, as they bring in João Resende from NAC Breda, a striker. I did say Wolves needed a striker. This is the man they've decided to go with. He is Portuguese, unsurprisingly. West Ham also bringing in Felipe Suarez. We had seen West Ham already. One thing I have noticed from this page, though, Fulham making quite a few sales to fellow Premier League clubs, including both Milos Kerkez and Tom McIntyre, heading to Everton. Now, they're both defenders. Kerkez is a 23-year-old left-back, and McIntyre is a 28-year-old centre-back. So Everton are obviously feeling that their issues so far in this save are at the back, and they head to Fulham, who have had a good season or 2 now, to try and fix that problem. We also see Grady Diangana leaving Fulham as he heads to Leeds for £12.5 million and a player exchange in Nicholas Dyer. To add a little context to the player exchange, this is Nicholas Dyer. Apparently is going to be a regular starter for Fulham, so they get their new left-back out of this transfer after they sold their regular starting left back to Everton, and then player exchange this guy in. So that may have been a smart move. But outside of that, we see Kelleher actually becoming a first choice goalkeeper as he finally leaves Liverpool to actually head to Fulham. So Fulham aren't just selling players. They've also brought in Jayden Bogle from Sheffield United. Outside of that, there are a lot more transfers down here. We see Luke Shaw moving to Sheffield United. We see Akram Afif, a Qatari winger heading to Sheffield United, age 30. There are plenty more transfers here. Callum Chambers, Allen. Is that the one that was at Manchester United, or is that the current Everton one? There are too many Allens. It's the one that went to Aston Villa. It's neither. Cool. We've got Tyrese Campbell coming to the Premier League with West Ham. John Stones now at Leeds. So some guys that we may see pop up. But the last thing to check here in the September stop-off is how does the league table look after 3 games of the season? Well, there's only one side with a perfect 3-for-3 record, and it's Newcastle, with on the back of Gabriel Barbosa's 5 goals in 3 games, and Ergutan Sakir with the highest average rating in the league. In fact, Andre Onana, another goalkeeper, is second. So goalkeepers really standing out so far. Onana and Sakir both with 2 clean sheets. So Newcastle's results so far, they've had a big 3-0 win at Ellen Road, and then 2 home wins as well. Massive 4-1 over West Ham, though they are bottom, and a 2-0 win over Sheffield United. We've got Manchester City, Arsenal, Villa and Spurs all on 7. We're looking at pretty familiar sides in the top 10. We do see Wolves there, though, up in 9th, which is the only change. No, I said top 10, didn't I? Yeah, no, it's still the only change because Leicester are 10th. However, Leeds United, a side I said who were now becoming a regular top 9 and actually finished 4th just 2 seasons ago, 3 straight defeats. Although we look at the 3 defeats, you realise it's Newcastle, Liverpool and Manchester United. So I'm maybe not too concerned for Leeds yet. We do see Southampton and West Ham also on 0 points. Southampton haven't scored a goal and have lost to Palace, Villa and Wolves. West Ham have scored 3 but been battered away from home twice. They were Newcastle and Manchester City. The only game that you'd maybe think slightly worrying is Sheffield United, but we've seen them become a pretty solid mid-table Premier League side. Of the newly promoted teams, we actually see them all outside the relegation zone. Crystal Palace up in 11th on 4. Norwich have 3 draws, including a draw at home against Chelsea and a home draw against Villa as well. So a couple of decent results there. And then we see Brighton also on 3 points, but they have a win at Goodison Park over Everton. So that's where that came from. But now we're going to jump ahead to November. We're going to take a look at any managerial changes that happen in the next couple of months. We'll see what the table's looking like after about 10 games into the season, and we'll jump into the player stats for the first time. So we've simulated ahead. We are now on the 3rd of November. I've actually just taken a quick look at the managerial movements. No one has been sacked. Nobody has left. So nothing to note there. One little note, actually, that I've just noticed. Premier League is still number 1 in competition reputation. It hasn't moved, which is good for the Premier League. I mean, it keeps winning the Champions League, so it's really not going to move too far. But a surprising side at the top of the Premier League table, 10 games in, Tottenham lead the way on 23 points. They've only lost once, and that was a spectacular 4-3 loss at Newcastle. What a game that was. That's one of the highest scores we've seen. They're being chased down by 3 sides in Manchester City, Chelsea and Newcastle, who are just 2 points behind. We then see Liverpool, Man United and Arsenal. And we've got slightly different 8, 9, 10. We've got Aston Villa, Sheffield United and Brighton So Brighton, in their first season back in the Premier League after one away, have got off to a decent start. I mean, they are reasonably far behind 7th for being 10th, but it still worked out pretty well. We see Southampton there as well. Down the wrong end of the table, Leeds have made a slight recovery. They picked up 10 points, so they are up to 13th. But what a drop-off for Leicester. Way down in 17th, just 9 points so far. They are 2 points clear of the relegation zone, which has Everton in it. Again, Everton just getting off to an absolutely awful start, which seems to be tradition at this point. The other two teams in the bottom 3, Crystal Palace in 19th, and Reading are back to normal again, aren't they? Their only point, a 1-1 draw at the King Power. I feel like that happened in Reading's first Premier League season in this save. Like, their only points were coming against Leicester. It's happened again. But, yeah, Reading's one decent season has very quickly disappeared again. I mean, it was mostly thanks to Benny McCarthy. John Terry's not had a great time at Reading. Not sure how much longer he's going to last. But, yeah, Spurs leading the way still is kind of surprising. Leicester being as low as they are. Leeds being as low as they are. I know 13th isn't massively low. And then, I don't think there's too much else surprising, really. But what we can do now is jump into some team stats and, well, mostly the player stats. But if we jump to team stats first, we'll take a quick look. We find Manchester City have the most goals as a team at 21. And there's actually a lot of teams quite close together. Chelsea, Liverpool, Spurs all on 20. Newcastle, Arsenal 18 and 17. Norwich quite high up, surprisingly. They've scored 16. But are 16th in the table. How many have they conceded? We look at the bottom end, we find Reading only scoring 5, Leicester and Palace only scoring 7. So that's where Leicester's issue is. See, XG4, Chelsea actually have the highest at, well, around about how many they've scored, really. See, the West Ham have had 4 penalties. That is a lot. In fact, there's been quite a few penalties going for West Ham, Arsenal, Liverpool and Southampton. A few teams on 2 as well. It's 4 penalties in 10 games feels like a lot. I'm not 100% sure if it is. If we look at conceded, I'm expecting Norwich at the bottom. Yeah, they've conceded 21. So Norwich's games have been very entertaining because they've scored 16 and conceded 21. If we look to the other end, the good end, Manchester United have conceded just 6, Man City with 7, and then Chelsea and Spurs at 8. Heading to the individual player stats, and we find a new man at the top of the charts. And it is the new boy, Benjamin Sesko, up with 9 goals so far on the season. Bearing in mind, he's playing up front with Erling Haaland. What a strike partnership that is for Manchester City. Sesko with 9, Haaland with 5 so far, so a pretty good start all round for them. Gabriel Barbosa is still there. He's only got a couple goals in the last 7 games, but he still has 7 on the season. And look who's back. Romelu Lukaku is hanging around again. The man's 34. He's still going. He's got 6, alongside Alexander Isak, who's got 6. A man that I mentioned, I think it was last season, had kind of disappeared after sort of the first good 6 months after he joined United. He's back, though. We see the likes of Odsonne Edouard, Tammy Abraham playing for Arsenal. When did that happen? It was a free transfer. I missed that one. He got 9 last season. He's started off better this year with 5 in his first 9. So Tammy Abraham playing for Arsenal after a free transfer from Roma. Okay, well, at least we know that now. We see Gonçalo Ramos, a Portuguese player for Newcastle up here. Dominic Calvert-Lewin's back scoring goals again, though Everton in the bottom 3. Daniel Jefferson still hanging around. We've got Harry Kane, now 34 years old. He's got 4 goals. Jens Peter Haug with 3. Stefan Mavropanos here with 3. So we've got a few guys that we do recognise and have seen previously through the save. We drop down to assists. We actually find that Harry Kane has got 6 assists. So he's becoming more of a midfielder, isn't he? And then Mo Salah at 35 has 5. You've got Ruben Neves and Hugo Felix, a couple of Portuguese players there on 4, and a bunch of guys on 3. We've actually got a new gen player here in Dean Lindsay with 2. He is considered a breakthrough prospect. Obviously, he's starting to break through, so that's pretty good to see. Maybe will be more of a left wing back than he is a central midfielder. It'd be interesting to see if we ever see his name again. I mean, Harvey Elliott's here. Owen Wijndal, the guy that we mentioned Newcastle signed this season, and Muncher as well, the guy that Burnley signed, and Moussa Barrow. So a few of the new signings jumping in with a few assists. Jump to key passes, we find Marcus Rashford is here, and Harry Pickering is here again. His statistics are crazy on, key passes. I don't know how he gets so many every season and no one does anything with them. There's Steven Sessegnon. So actually, both Sessegnons are in the Premier League, so that's nice to see. Steven's playing for Norwich, and Ryan was playing for West Ham, if I remember correctly. If we jump to chances created, we find Harry Kane topping that. He's created 7 chances, and 6 of them have been taken. That's pretty impressive. He's level with Morgan Gibbs-White once again. Is out here creating chances. I think they're being taken a little bit better, though he does only have 1 assist, so also maybe not. If we go to the defensive side of things, we look at, again, tackles per 90, Kylian Mbappe. Okay, he's here again. If we actually look at general tackles won, we find that Francisco Ortega tops that chart on 28. And then a new gen in Strahinja Bjekovic. I have probably said that horrendously wrong. Just 21 years of age, a right back, looks like an absolutely spectacular player. Is now the regular starting right back for Arsenal. They're going from Red Star Belgrade back in 2025 for just £5.5 million. And yeah, this is his first season as the regular starter, and he has been very, very good. So he's going to be a name to keep an eye out on, especially in the defensive statistics. We've also got Benjamin Anor here for Crystal Palace as well. So it's really good to see some new gen players now that we're in 2027. Some new gen guys are starting to appear in these statistics, which is pretty cool. We look to key tackles. We find Christian Romero playing for Newcastle is topping that one with 5. And then Renan and Callum Chambers here on 4. We see Sandro Martinez, a guy we mentioned had come in this season. We look to key headers. Axel Disasi was actually a new signing. He was on the list. I didn't mention him, though, but he is top there. Castan, new signing for Leeds. Tops interceptions. Kurt Zuma, tops clearances. Yeah, okay. And fouls is actually led by Trent Alexander-Arnold this season. Fair enough. We look to the goalkeepers, finally. We see Andre Onana with saves held. Marek Rodak saves parried for Norwich. And there it is. XG prevented. The stat. I look at it, I don't know if I should be, but Edouard Mendy is topping that by a very long way. He's up at almost 7, followed by Andre Onana there on 4. So good to see them still playing so well. Mendy is now 35. So Chelsea may want to start thinking about a replacement goalkeeper. Burnley have actually got a couple guys up here in Matej Kovar and Joel Drommel. Burnley are 14th. Thought they were higher than that. I didn't remember that correctly. Got likes of Daniel Iverson, who's not having a good time. Mads Hermansen's not having a good time. Marek Rodak. Aaron Ramsdale actually is quite low down. As is Ersin Destinoglu. That's very low for him. That's a good reason why Leeds are not doing as well as they have been. Newball, maybe hope for a little bit more from a guy that they spent so much money on. Though David Raya appears to be the Aston Villa goalkeeper now. Indeed he is. They bought him for £13.25 million from Brentford in this summer. So obviously they had to replace Newball. They'd already sold Martinez when they bought Newball. So now David Raya is the new guy in goal for Villa, coming over from Brentford. But other than that, I think that is going to be the end of the November stop-off point. We're now going to jump forward to the beginning of the new year, so in January, where the window will open, but we'll also take a look at how the Premier League stands roughly halfway through the season, and then also take a look at the European group stages and see how the Premier League sides got on. So we've come forward to the 1st of January 2028, and actually a tournament that I've literally given no reference to in this entire series so far, the FA Community Shield. It's actually worked out because you can see every winner of it so far. Chelsea won it at the start of this season. It's the 3rd time they've won it in the save. Man City have won it 3 times as well, and Liverpool just the once. Chelsea with a 3-2 win over Manchester City. We'll take a quick look at the goal scorers. I mean, you can see 3 of them there. In Neto, Lukaku and Haaland all getting 1. Who got the other goals? Man City were 2-0 up and then blew it. It was Sesko and Haaland within a minute of each other. And then in the second half, within a minute of each other, Lukaku and Camavinga, and then Pedro Neto with the winner. But getting back to more recent times within the save, we're going to take a look at Europe first, starting with the Europa Conference League. Spurs do indeed top their group as expected. They do have a couple of draws, though. They drew away at AZ Alkmaar and away at Esteras Tripolis, which is quite a bad result, really, because that was Tripolis' only point of the entire group stage. The Spurs head through with AZ Alkmaar. Because they've won the group, they will not come in until the second playoff round, second knockout round. That's the word I'm looking for. So we don't know who they're playing yet. We head to the Europa League, and Group B went roughly as I expected. Did I? No. I said Newcastle would get through, didn't I? I think. Or did I say they'd go out? I only said it a few minutes ago, and I can't remember. But Newcastle are out of the Europa League. They will drop down to the Europa Conference League, so we will need to nip back and check who they play in the first knockout round. They're eliminated by Atalanta and Hertha Berlin. So Newcastle got the 2 wins over Sparta Prague, 4-0 and 3-0. By the way, Sparta Prague got absolutely destroyed. I didn't expect them to get beaten that badly. I thought they'd come bottom of the group. I expected them to at least put up a fight. They did not. They conceded 4 3 times, once to each team. Anyway, Newcastle, 2 draws. They drew both home games, but then they also lost both away games, which is the big thing that cost them. So Newcastle dropped down. Manchester United, though, they cruise through, though they do actually lose one of their group games. They actually lost at Old Trafford against Victoria Pilsen, and that is what helped Pilsen get through, because that was the big changing factor for them. If they lose that game, there'd have been 3 teams on 6 points. So, well done Pilsen for that one. But Man United through. We won't see them until the second knockout round. We're going to nip back to the Europa Conference League, though, just to see who Newcastle are playing. So when we get there, we see the first knockout round. Newcastle at the bottom of that draw there. They will take on FK Partizan Belgrade of Serbia. I would imagine that Newcastle will come through that one, especially playing the home leg first. I think they can get a decent enough lead to pretty much sweep past them. And then finally for Europe, we look at the Champions League. We start with Group D, where Manchester City go 6 for 6 through their group, although Celtic are the side to go through with them. So Celtic playing knockout football in the Champions League. Well done to them. Man City, 16 goals for, only 2 conceded. They had 3 3-0 wins, a 3-1 over Celtic, and some decent results over Lazio as well. We look to Group E, and oh dear Arsenal. They will not even have Europa League football. Arsenal are out of Europe altogether, finishing bottom of Group E. I did say Atletico Madrid and Inter, I got them the wrong way round, but I also got Lille and Arsenal the wrong way round. So Arsenal's 2 wins were actually over Inter Milan and Atletico Madrid, both at the Emirates, but they lost to Lille twice. And that has been the massive factor, because that was 6 of Lille's 7 points. And of course, Arsenal only get 6. Arsenal out of Europe. We look to Chelsea. They also go 6 for 6 in the Champions League as they dispatch Juve as well. In fact, Juve was the easiest team in the group, apparently. A 7-0 aggregate win with a 4-0 win at Juventus and a 3-0 win at home. Okay, the Juventus are the side that actually go through with Chelsea anyway, despite the dispatchiness of it. Group H, our final group to look at. Liverpool do indeed top it as they head through with Porto. Unfortunately, Midtjylland, their Champions League experience was pretty bad. They conceded 4-3 times, twice to Liverpool. Liverpool did actually draw a game. They had a 1-1 draw against Borussia Mönchengladbach away from home. But Liverpool, Chelsea and Manchester City all head through as group winners. So we're just looking for 3 teams in the first knockout round, or rather the last 16 stage. Chelsea will take on RB Leipzig. I think that should be relatively straightforward for Chelsea. Liverpool will face Real Madrid. Now that is going to be a very feisty fixture right there. I think Liverpool can get through it though. And then Manchester City will face Barcelona. Okay. So Man City and Liverpool, despite winning their groups, have not got it easy at all. In fact, there are quite a few really tasty looking fixtures here. AC Milan, Atletico Madrid and Inter Milan, Dortmund stand out as well. And then, Celtic and Bayern Munich. Oh, that could be bad for Celtic. So from that, we actually come back to the Premier League. And we have had a few managerial changes now. There have been 3 sackings and 1 manager just left. He actually moved to another Premier League team. The first manager gone was Leeds sacking Alfred Schroeder, a man who did quite well for a good period of time, even got Leeds into the Champions League one season, but a bad start to this year sees him gone. They replace him with Vincenzo Montella, the Norwich manager. So therefore, Norwich had to go out and get a new manager. They have very, very recently hired Steven Gerrard, who, of course, is ex-Aston Villa manager, was actually, I did not know this, he was brought in as a coach at Burnley under Dean Smith. That's a very strange move, but I guess he wanted to give himself something to do, realised he wasn't getting offered manager's jobs, came in as a coach, and has now got another manager's job. So, strange plan, but it worked out pretty well. We then see Viktor Goncharenko lasting, 4 months? That's pretty terrible. The players lost confidence. Leicester were down the bottom. He is gone. Ruben Baraja is the replacement there, a Spanish manager. Spent time at Real Zaragoza in real life, came in at Reims in the game, then spent a year with Lyon, and now heads into Leicester to try and save whatever the hell's going on there. The other sacking was actually Dean Smith. So Gerrard could have just stepped up to manage that team. He doesn't, he didn't get the job anyway, and then ends up leaving to Norwich. But we see Jess Thorup is back. Short-term Crystal Palace manager in 24-25, then became the Denmark national team manager. Yes, he left Palace, didn't he? He wasn't sacked. He just left to become Denmark's manager, but decides after a couple of years in international management, he'd quite like to do some more Premier League management, and he comes in to see what he can do with Burnley, which gives the idea that it's gone rather wrong for Burnley. If we look at the table, that's not too bad for Burnley. 12th is all right. We can see why Montella was brought in at Leicester, because look how well he was doing with Norwich. Norwich up in 11th. Wow, okay. Go on then, Norwich. We see Reading. Reading have drawn 7 games. That means they've drawn 6 of their last 10. You turn like 2 of those into wins and they'd be looking, well, still in a lot of trouble actually, because Palace are in a lot of trouble too. But it's Southampton filling the extra relegation spot at the moment. Leeds barely with their heads above water, now under Vincenzo Montella, who actually left Norwich to go to Leeds. Okay, I mean, they are only 4 points off Norwich. Again, it's become very much a kind of top 10 and a bottom 10. Although Leicester, sort of an in-between, though they do have a game in hand to get within 3 of Villa. Welcome Sheffield United to the top 10 party. They've replaced Leeds. We should probably look at the top as well. It's still Spurs. Surprisingly, they are having a hell of a season under Roberto Mancini. Is this the year for Spurs to finally win their first Premier League crown? They're 2 points ahead of Manchester City, 5 ahead of reigning champions Chelsea, though Chelsea do have a game in hand to get level with Manchester City. And then we've got Man United, Newcastle, Liverpool, and you can kind of include Arsenal there as well. Kind of grouped together for that 4th spot, or in a battle for the 4th spot. So I think the league looks relatively as we'd expect. I think Sheffield United are doing a lot better than I thought. Norwich are doing a lot better. And then you got Leeds doing a lot worse. Everton and Wolves just seem to be chilling in this save. But of the newly promoted sides, Brighton doing pretty well. And of course, Norwich. I mean, it looks a lot better than it is. You see 11th and you think, that's brilliant. And you realise they're only 4 points clear of 18th. And it sounds less good. If we take a very, very quick look at the stats, I'm not going to dive into it this time. Benjamin Sesko's still leading the way with 15. We're going to have to get acquainted to Martin Santriano, because we've not seen his name before, but he is second on 14. He was signed for £8.5 million from Augsburg, where he'd been absolutely brilliant, getting almost 20 goals in his first season in the Bundesliga. Sheffield United take the chance on him, and my word, has he been superb. And he looks really good. Again, he's just another very Football Manager striker, currently out with an illness, but it won't keep him out for too long. Yeah, he's very Football Manager based, 6'2", not slow, reasonably strong, very good heading, good finishing. Yeah, I can see why he's got so many goals. Lukaku's still hanging around as well. Actually, Lukaku has broken Alan Shearer's goal-scoring record, because Lukaku's now on 270. Shearer had 260. So congratulations, Romelu Lukaku. I think he would have already broken it by the last stop-off, but I actually forgot. So there you go. Lukaku now the highest scoring player in Premier League history. Well, that is our run for January. We're now going to head to the beginning of February to get through the full January transfer window. We'll have a very, very brief look at the Premier League table. But most importantly, for January, we're going to see what transfers have gone down. So we've now let forward just slightly over a month. We're on to the 3rd of February just to make sure that the transfer window has indeed closed. So we're now looking for any transfer with the 2028 year. And the highest one is Harvey Barnes, returning back to the Premier League after a little short spell with Benfica. I say short spell, actually, it was about 2.5 years. Spurs splashing £45.5 million to bring the Leicester Academy player back to England, back to his homeland. We'll see how Barnes gets on. We spot Fabio Carvalho coming back to the Premier League. Norwich making the second biggest transfer of the January transfer window. That's quite interesting. Well, it might not be, actually. It's the second highest for just straight up money. I've just noticed Ainsley Maitland-Niles heading to Brighton. So Brighton and Norwich making some big moves. Brighton are back. I had a moment where I was like, wait, are Brighton in the Championship? No. We remember this is their first season back, as well as Norwich. So they've both decided they're not going back down again, haven't they? Big moves on their part. With Fabio Carvalho, we've seen and we know how good a player he can be. And he's actually walked into Norwich and scored 3 in 3 with 2 assists. Wow. What a start for Fabio Carvalho at Carrow Road. My goodness me. Okay. He wasn't waiting around. How old is Maitland-Niles now, by the way? He's 30, so that's quite a big fee. Brighton obviously feel like he can help them out massively. We find Alejandro Balde has left. We find Wilfred Singo has left. And then we find Murray Gibson, a 22-year-old new-gen Scottish striker, leaving Fulham, where he'd been extremely prolific. I say extremely prolific. He wasn't in the Premier League. He had 18 in 29 in the Championship, so he'd been brilliant there. But Manchester United taking a shot on him. They make him a squad player. He is part of the senior squad, thank goodness. 6'5", 16 jumping reach, 18 heading. That is all you need to know. And 17 strength. We'll add that in there too. Murray Gibson could well be a name that we see for quite a few years in this save. Already 11 caps for Scotland as well. So let's keep that name in mind. Murray Gibson. He could appear a lot. We go down let's go down a full page. We find Kasper Kozlowski has left Brighton. So that's some of the money there that Brighton have got back. So they get 23 million for him. There's not a whole lot else that's gone down. Matteo Lovato is now a Manchester City player, the Italian centre-back coming over from Hellas Verona as a rotation player. Hasn't appeared yet. He only came in about a week ago, so that's fair. You see, Gabriel has left to Shakhtar Donetsk. Obviously, the Arsenal centre-back in real life made a transfer to Manchester United. Didn't play a whole lot. Heads off to Shakhtar for 15 million. I don't think a whole lot has happened in this window, has it? Matty Cash has left Aston Villa for Southampton. The Southampton tried to find a way to stay up. And Southampton have brought in Steven Rodriguez as well, a Colombian striker from Granada again. So Granada are actually making a little bit of money here in this season. They're selling some players to the Prem, making a bit of money. Good for them. We'll go down one more full page. I don't think a whole lot has actually happened. Have I scrolled too far? I did a little bit. I don't think a whole lot's happened in this window. Reece Williams heads to Fulham. So that is that's the Liverpool youngster centre-back. He's now at Fulham, considered a squad player. Yeah, not a whole lot's gone down in this window. João Cancelo has made an interesting move. Okay, that one's a little bit more interesting. Manchester City to Chelsea for João Cancelo at 33 years of age. Chelsea bringing him in as a bit of a backup. Interesting move here for Max Nicol, a 21-year-old. Quite a big transfer to Crystal Palace. I say quite big, 9 million. But if you're going to spend 9 million on a guy that's not really going to be in your first team, I find that a little bit odd, but okay. Palace probably building for the future since they're probably not going to stay up. Joe Gelhardt heads down to the Championship to play for Brentford. Oh, hello. Kevin De Bruyne is gone. I don't think he was playing that much by the end, was he? He still had 14 games. He was playing quite a few. But he is headed off for just over £7 million to Serie A with Inter Milan. I guess they didn't want to get nothing for him. He is now 36, will turn 37 going into the next season. So Man City just want to at least get something for him. They do. He's just shy of 400 Premier League games for Manchester City, 390. An absolute legend of the club at Manchester City. But he may well finish his career off at Inter Milan. So we are saying goodbye to Kevin De Bruyne there. Reece Norrington-Davis, another Blackburn player, leaves as he joins Wolves. Luka Podolak heads to Newcastle for a pretty cheap fee of £7 million, just as a backup goalkeeper. And then probably the last one, Clement Longley leaves the Premier League to head to Sporting Lisbon. Let's take a look at the Premier League table, though. We're only about 4 or 5 more games on, so not a whole lot has happened. Though I say that, Spurs are very, very much not at the top of the Premier League anymore. They have slipped right down to 4th and are level on points and goal difference with Manchester United. It's now Manchester City, top of the Premier League, and starting to run away with it ahead of Chelsea. They have played an extra game, but even if Chelsea win, it would still be a 6-point gap. So Man City in the driver's seat with 12 to 13 games to go. You can see why. Benjamin Sesko, in his first Premier League season, 21 goals. I think he scored 6 in 6. Tammy Abraham's actually appeared here as well. Arsenal currently 6th in the table. Newcastle 7th. Sheffield United still hanging around in 9th. But again, like I said, there's kind of a top 10 and a bottom 10. And that split has appeared. There's a 5-point gap between Leicester and what is now West Ham. And I said Norwich were not safe. It's become pretty clear that they're really not. But look at Leeds. Was it just 2 or 3 seasons ago, they were finishing 4th and playing Champions League football. They are now in the bottom 3 points adrift of 3 other sides. Could Leeds really get relegated? That would be a huge relegation. I said it was massive when Southampton went down, when West Ham went down, even when Brighton went down, because that was a surprising one. But if Leeds go down, I feel like that is going to be the biggest relegation of the save. We see Reading and Crystal Palace look pretty dead. Reading still haven't won a game. They've drawn 2 more, though. 9 draws. Including draws with Liverpool and Newcastle in there, actually. So they've had a couple decent results. But they had such a good season last year. And it's gone remarkably wrong again this season. What we're going to do now, we're going to get ahead to April. We'll take another look at how the European competitions are going down once they've got through at least a round or 2 of their knockout stages. We'll take a look at the Premier League table again as well as we get towards the end of the season, and we'll get another look at some stats. We've now moved ahead to the 4th of April, and to start off with, we're going to take a look how the European knockout stages are going for the Premier League clubs. We start with the Europa Conference League, which has 2 teams in it now after Newcastle dropped down from the Europa League. Newcastle did indeed dispatch Partizan Belgrade 4-1, and then a tricky tie with AEK Athens that they managed to come through 4-3. Means Newcastle remain in the competition, and they will take on Freiburg of Germany in the quarterfinals. However, Spurs are gone. They are knocked out in the last 16 by Dynamo Kiev after a 4-4 draw on aggregate. Kiev come through on penalties. So we are down to just Newcastle for the last 8. Europa League-wise, we were left with just 1 Premier League side in the competition after Newcastle dropped down to the Europa Conference. That side being Manchester United. They came in at the last 16 stage and had to take on Hertha Berlin in that game, and 4-3, pretty darn close. Obviously, Hertha Berlin, one of the sides that helped knock Newcastle out of the Europa League. They aren't able to knock out Manchester United, though. Man United advance to the quarterfinals, where they will play more German opposition in Borussia Mönchengladbach, who actually managed to defeat Atalanta. So, both Atalanta and Hertha Berlin eliminated. Sorry, Newcastle. The sides you lost to aren't going to be winning the Europa League. And then finally, looking at the Champions League, 3 Premier League sides remain after Arsenal's elimination from the competition at the group stage, and all 3 English sides are still in. Chelsea dispatched RB Leipzig as expected 5-1. They will take on Juventus again. I'm pretty sure they were in the group stage with, and destroyed like 7-0 on aggregate. So I'd expect Chelsea to get through that. Manchester City come through against Barcelona 2-0 on aggregate. They have to face Bayern Munich, though, who dispatched Celtic 5-1. I think Bayern might have the beating of Man City. Although Man City obviously were slight runaway leaders in the Premier League at the February stop-off. So maybe Man City are better than I'm giving them credit for. Liverpool come through 2-1 against Real Madrid. They will take on Borussia Dortmund in the quarterfinals. I think Liverpool just have too much for Dortmund. So I'm going to say Liverpool and Chelsea will make it through. I'm going to back Bayern. I think Man City are going to get knocked out. We'll take a look at the League Cup final as well. Manchester City get their revenge in a cup final over Chelsea after losing the Community Shield to Chelsea. Erling Haaland gets 2. Benjamin Sesko scores because that's just what he does. And Yeremy Pino put the final nail in the coffin late on. Kai Havertz did equalise for Chelsea after just 10 minutes. In fact, it was 3-1 after 16 minutes. So if you missed the first 16 minutes, at least you got to see Yeremy Pino's goal. But there's a piece of silverware for Manchester City anyway. And then back in Premier League-wise, over the past couple months, there have been a couple more managerial changes. Quite soon after the February stop-off point, actually. Both Wolves and Crystal Palace sacking their managers on the same day, actually. Eddie Howe removed from his post at Wolves for a poor league position. They have hired a guy that I won't be able to pronounce. It was actually Aberdeen manager, which is an interesting role. Starts as Slavia Prague boss, Jindřich Šupasovský. That's not even close, is it? But a Czech manager at 52 years old comes in for his first Premier League managerial job. Antonio Conte sacked by Crystal Palace. Palace are going to get relegated. Oh, look, it's Roberto De Zerbi. I don't know whether he was sacked by Bournemouth or if he left Bournemouth. He's back in the Premier League for a very, very brief span before he gets relegated again. I'm still never going to understand that move from Leicester to Bournemouth, and this makes even less sense, but there we go. If Bournemouth get promoted, De Zerbi makes no sense. I don't get him. We'll take a look at the Premier League table. It's still Manchester City topping the way, and it very, very much looks like Manchester City are going to take their Premier League crown back. They are 10 points clear of Chelsea and have a game in hand. They confirmed EC2, 1 position in the table and how many points clear they are. 2, they won the League Cup. So that's not going to play into it. 7th will be a European spot. Chelsea have already confirmed Europe as well. It's Liverpool and Spurs hunting in behind for the Champions League spots. And Manchester United and Arsenal level with Spurs, and Man United even have the same goal difference. This could be a brilliant, brilliant run-in. In fact, actually looking at the table, Liverpool are the side in the most trouble. Because Arsenal, Man United and Spurs could all get ahead of Liverpool. Could Liverpool miss Champions League football? That would be interesting. Newcastle are kind of just stranded in 7th. They don't really know what they're doing. Villa are kind of just stranded in 8th. They don't know what they're doing either. And then Sheffield United still in the top half of the table. And Everton have popped up in the top half. Phil Neville only gets his teams going like about 10 or 15 games into the season. He wakes up and actually has his teams play well. If Everton could start a season well, they'd probably be competing for Europe. But instead, they're always competing for like 10th. Leicester currently 11th. We look to the bottom half. Reading have actually won twice. They've beaten Leicester. It's happened again. Leicester haven't beaten Reading, the bottom side in the Premier League. It feels like that's happening all the time. Crystal Palace, they're dead and buried. They've got 2 wins over West Ham, though. The West Ham look safe, but I've said that before about teams. I've been horribly wrong. It's Wolves that look like they're in big trouble. Leeds have done a bit of a rescue act. They're up on 34 points in 13th now. But Wolves are the side in big trouble at the moment. They need to win their game in hand, because that would get them within 2 points of West Ham. Wolves in some trouble. What we can do, what we're going to do, is we're going to take a quick look at the stats again. We'll take another look at this when we get to the end of the season, which is only about 6 or 7 games away. Manchester City top the charts in scoring, and my word, Sesko and Haaland have done a job on the Premier League. 77 goals for Manchester City this season. Chelsea with 65, Liverpool with 57. If we look at conceded, Man City lead that stat as well. That's a pretty good way to make sure that you're a runaway leader at the top of the table, is to top both goals scored and goals conceded. Manchester United there with 26 conceded, and then Chelsea at 30. Most conceded on the season is actually Norwich with 65, but they're not in the bottom 3. Reading have conceded 63, both way ahead of Wolves on 52. If we look at least goals scored, I'm imagining Wolves are probably down here. Yeah, they've only scored 33. Palace have only scored 20 goals. Reading just 26. Actually, Southampton and Brighton with just 31 each, and Leicester just 33. But they've been solid enough defensively to keep them out. If we head to the player stats, we'll start, obviously, with goals, as we tend to. Benjamin Sesko still leading the way. 25 goals in 29 appearances. What an incredible first season from him. Romelu Lukaku up there on 20 in second place. There just always seems to be a Manchester City striker in his way in these past couple seasons. Last year it was Haaland, this year it's Sesko. We see why Sheffield United are doing so well. Daniel Jefferson, 17 goals for him. Martin Satriano with 16. Tammy Abraham up here with 17 as well. Calvert-Lewin 16. Haaland with 15. So Haaland and Sesko are combining for 40 goals in... Well, Haaland's played 24. Sesko's played 29. That is pretty insane statistically. Vitinha's back again. He's got 11. So even when Leeds are doing badly, he's still doing all right. Isaac on 10, so he didn't really push on from his good start. And Mbappe has 10 as well. It's not quite as prolific as he... Actually, did Mbappe win the Golden Boot last year? That's going to have to be a check back on the previous video. I might be wrong. It was either Haaland or Mbappe, and I can't remember. If we look to assists, a 35-year-old Mo Salah is absolutely crushing it on 13, ahead of Harry Kane and Hugo Felix on 9 each. So that's where Norwich's chances are coming from. Hugo Felix playing really, really well. We move on to key passes, and we actually find some really interesting names. And Osam Sarawi leading the way, a Norwegian winger. He might be playing attacking midfield. He's been at Southampton for a little while, played championship football for them, now playing Premier League and doing really, really well in creating chances at least. Well, key passes at least. Yassine Adli, a face we've seen a few times over the past couple of seasons. Cole Palmer, someone I said that I thought would do quite well for Leeds. Again, an off-season for Leeds, but Cole Palmer's still up there on key passes. And then Tino Livramento doing well for Wolves, despite the fact that they look like they might go down. We head to chances created, and again, Morgan Gibbs-White leading the way in chances created, but just 3 assists to his name. And he might even get relegated this season, which seems extremely harsh. Leon Bailey and Kai Havertz with 14 each, and they've both got 7 assists. Kane with 13 and 9 assists. I mean, Rashford's kind of in the same boat as Gibbs-White. He's created 13 chances and only had 2 of them converted. So Gibbs-White certainly isn't the only one. It feels like he is the one being most affected. Dribbles made is a stat we haven't really looked at. Tariq Lamptey tops that with Trent Alexander-Arnold and Luca Oriano in second. We head to the defensive stats. Jordan Zamora actually now leads tackles 1 ahead of Francisco Ortega and Sergio Carrera. Again, I think Maxwell Cornet is still playing left back. He's been playing there like the whole time, which is kind of weird. We head to key tackles. Christian Romero still leads the way, though he is now joined by Trent Alexander-Arnold. Tim Koopmeiners in behind them for Manchester United. Key headers has two guys. It's got Joe Rodon and just Ben White. Is it Benjamin White or Ben White? Interceptions made still being led by Timothy Castan. No James Justin or Reece James for once. So it's nice to see some different names up here. Victor Christensen leading in blocks. Got Diogo Quiroz leading shots blocked. He's here on interceptions made as well. And Tariq Lamptey actually leads the league in fouls, just ahead of Owen Wijndal. So the Newcastle fullbacks not tackling very well, and James Justin, instead of actually winning the ball, is cleaning people out. That would explain why he's not in the interceptions or anything like that. Finally, for goalkeepers, we see Esteban Andrada for Southampton with most saves held. Nuba with most saves parried. We haven't checked clean sheets, have we? That's a bit silly of me. Ederson leads the league in clean sheets with 14, just one ahead of both Andre Onana and Edouard Mendy. They seem to be the three competing for the Golden Glove this season. And then the expected goals prevented. Edouard Mendy still leading the way in that one, still ahead of Andre Onana, and then actually Ederson in third, so that does make a lot of sense. Liverpool have had a new-gen goalkeeper in goal. So with the sale of Kelleher, Jochen Mutzel has become a backup goalkeeper. He's actually played relatively decently. 4 appearances, 4 conceded, but 2 clean sheets and over a 7 average rating. So maybe Jochen Mutzel could be a guy that we see become a regular keeper in this save. We look at the bottom end of this. Matej Kovar's fallen off here. Mads Hermansen is still down here. What? This is potentially the strangest thing I've seen so far in this save. Sander Berge has been in goal. I think Sheffield United might have had a red card to Alexander Nubel at some point. Because Sander Berge has played in goal. That's interesting. Ready to Burr, are you a goalkeeper? Yes. Malero Bogard's not a goalkeeper either. I didn't think he was. So we've had at least 2 players go in goal. That is something I've not noticed previously. But it's happened to Burnley and it's happened to Sheffield United. That's quite fun. I didn't really know that was a thing. I didn't know goalkeepers could get red carded in this game. Or injured in this game. I've never seen it happen during a match or anything. So, that's quite fun. I quite like that. So now the next move is to jump ahead to the final day of the season, just to see what's left to play for. It looks like Manchester City might have the Premier League title wrapped up by then, but the battle for Europe is certainly going to be on. Well, Champions League and kind of Europa League is actually going to be a bad thing. Because it seems like our top 6 is set and it is just the old school big 6. But who ends up Europa League? Who ends up Champions League? Newcastle look pretty nailed on for the EC2 spot. And then Villa look pretty nailed on for 8th. But the other talk is who ends up going down with Crystal Palace and Reading. Wolves looking like the team in danger at the moment. But can we at least have something to play for on the final day? So here we are at the final day of the Premier League season. And there's not a whole lot to play for, really. Manchester City have won the Premier League title. And they do have a shot at repeating the 100-point season, which is absolutely incredible. Vincent Kompany, after his first season in charge, it really didn't look like it was going to go that well for him. He has fully turned it around and put together an incredible season. The signing of Benjamin Sesko has been absolutely just inspired. I know player-wise it sounds pretty simple, just get Sesko and do well. But game-wise, good job, Vincent. You've got yourself another Premier League title, but this time as a manager. We see Chelsea and Spurs confirmed Champions League football. Spurs were in the last 16 of the Europa Conference League, and now they're playing Champions League football. Pray for them. That could be interesting. The only thing that kind of is up for grabs is fourth. And it seems unlikely, because Liverpool are at home against already relegated Wolves. Wolves are gone. That's a massive relegation. Trabzonspor couldn't keep them up. Or Trabzonspor, I still don't know how to say it. Wolves have been a mainstay since 2018. And now 10 years on, they are relegated from the Premier League. I mean, that is an interesting one. Reading have actually gotten off the bottom of the table, which is quite nice. Although a Palace win and a Reading loss would see Reading finish last. Palace play Villa. Reading play Brighton. Brighton and Norwich have had pretty good return seasons, actually. Obviously, Palace have gone straight back down. But Brighton and Norwich both stay up. I thought Brighton would. I didn't think Norwich would. It's the first time that they are not getting promoted or relegated in nearly 10 years. In 10 years. Well done, Stevie G. I mean, the previous manager started it off. The lad who, what's his name? Italian manager. Help. Montella. He started it off really, really well. And then Gerrard's taken it on and carried it on, really. There was a bit of a blip in the middle. There was a blip where Norwich ended up 17th, but they've recovered it. They've got themselves up to 13th. I mean, technically they could finish as low as like 17th again, but they're safe. That's all that matters. Like I said, Newcastle are confirmed 7th. And then it's just, the only thing is Liverpool, Man United and Arsenal, really. For actual positional meaning to other things. So, slightly anticlimactic, really. But we'll swim ahead. We'll get to roughly end of May, beginning of June, to make sure that every competition is done. And then we'll run through Europe, we'll run through how the FA Cup's gone, and we'll get back to the Premier League, see the final table, and go through team and player stats to finish off the season. So we've simmed forward 2 further weeks to make sure that everything is now done regarding any Premier League teams. We're going to start off by looking at Europe once again, and we have an interesting situation here. Newcastle have won the Europa Conference League. So that is, I believe, their second piece of silverware in this save. And I think it's their second Europa Conference League title. They beat OGC Nice in the final 1-0 after getting through past Freiburg 4-2 in the quarterfinals and then Athletic Club Bilbao 3-1 in the semi-finals. Now, Newcastle have finished 7th in the Premier League, but this win means that they will play Europa League football again next season. So we might have a situation like we had one of the previous seasons where we are not going to have an English representative in the Europa Conference League. We'll check that when we see the Premier League table. I think that might be the case, though. We might not have a Europa Conference League side next season. There's also success for England in the Europa League as well. Manchester United get a piece of silverware, finally, in this save. I believe they're still managed by Zinedine Zidane. I don't think anything's changed there. Indeed, they are. They get past Gladbach quite easily, 6-2 in the end. They then take on Fiorentina in the semi-finals, and actually much closer. Only 2-1 on aggregate over Fiorentina. But the final, a relative cakewalk, really, over AS Monaco, 3-0. So Manchester United will play Champions League football next season. Again, another interesting situation, because I highly doubt that they finished 4th to get Champions League anyway. So now a side that would have been in the Europa League is playing Champions League football. So maybe a spot will open up for a team lower down. Again, we'll find out when we see the Premier League table. And last of all, the Champions League. Well, I said Man City would go out in the quarterfinals, didn't I? I was horribly wrong. They've won the damn thing again. I think this is Manchester City's second Champions League win of the save. And Vincent Kompany wins the League Cup, the Premier League, and the Champions League in the same season. We haven't even checked the FA Cup yet. He might have won a quadruple. We'll find out in a minute. But Man City, they ended up beating Bayern Munich 5-3 on aggregate, played Liverpool in the semi-finals, who beat Dortmund 6-2 in their quarter-final. Man City overcome them 3-1, and then beat PSG 3-1 in the final. Chelsea, the holders, I mean, they've lost a lot, haven't they? They had a lot of trophies that they're just handing over to Manchester City after this season. Chelsea ended up going out in the quarterfinals to Juventus, a side that they beat 7-0 on aggregate in the group stage. Football is weird, huh? But Man City have won a lot of things. Speaking of Manchester City and winning a lot of things, they were nowhere to be seen in the FA Cup final. It was actually Sheffield United and Spurs playing the FA Cup final. Jebbison gave Sheffield United the lead. Harry Kane then converted a penalty to make it 1-1. Then Nunez, is that Darwin Nunez? I think. It's not going to show me. It is indeed Darwin Nunez, who then made it 2-1 to Spurs. Love that he's transfer listed, by the way. Satriano came back to instantly equalise to make it 2-2. But it is Darwin Nunez who netted his second goal of the game that wins Tottenham the FA Cup. So Spurs win themselves a piece of silverware, I think, for the first time in this save. So Spurs and Manchester United finally winning some silverware. And now we find out what all of that means for the Premier League and for qualification within Europe. It means, well, Manchester United will play Champions League football next season instead of Europa League, and Newcastle will play Europa League football instead of the Europa Conference League. So I think, as mentioned, there will be no Europa Conference League representative. Unfortunately for Sheffield United, it doesn't drop down to 8. And they also lost the FA Cup final, which would have got them Europe as well. So that is gutting for Sheffield United. They were so close. But they can certainly go again next season. I really now see them as maybe the 10th or 11th side. But they can certainly push towards those European spots. They ended up 8 points behind Newcastle, which is quite a distance, which is slightly worrying, but there we go. Manchester City actually miss out on the 100-point mark because they were actually at Stamford Bridge on the final day. Didn't note that. 2-2 draw there, so Man City fall short on 98. Chelsea a whole 15 points behind, though. Just Man City domination as they take yet another Premier League title. Very impressive again from Spurs. Liverpool very much do what I expected. They get a clean 2-0 win over Wolves as they guarantee themselves Champions League football again. As we'd already mentioned, Wolves, Reading and Crystal Palace are the relegated sides. What we will do, we'll have a quick look if anybody was sacked. It doesn't appear that they were, not yet anyway. We'll check at the beginning of the next video to see if there are any managerial changes over the summer. We can get into some team and player stats just to finish off this season. Manchester City with a big 95 goals as a team. Chelsea second with 80 and Liverpool 71 pops them in third. Least goals, Crystal Palace with just 27 scored. Southampton with just 35, but they stay up. And Burnley at 38 also stay up. So it wasn't through them being prolific, let's put it that way. We can look at conceded as well. Manchester City conceded just 29 goals. They were just completely dominant this year. Manchester United conceding just 31, but it was a Europa League win that gets them Champions League football rather than their league position. And Spurs conceding just 34, proving that defence can do a whole lot for you. And into the individual player stats, Benjamin Sesko, first season in the Premier League, and he bags 30 straight away. So an instant golden boot for him. Romelu Lukaku is in second once again. He gets 23, a whole 7 behind. And then Daniel Jebbison and Dominic Calvert-Lewin actually end up tied for third with 21. And then Martin Satriano in fifth Jefferson and Satriano combining for 41 goals for Sheffield United. That's how they did so well. We see the likes of Erling Haaland and Tammy Abraham up there at 19. Mbappe came through quite well late on. He picked up 16 alongside Odsonne Edouard. João Resende actually scored 14 Premier League goals in Wolves' relegation, which is interesting because I did say Wolves needed a striker. Resende has done all right, but they've gotten relegated. Coutinho's here again with 12. We see Martinelli, a player I feel like we haven't seen a lot of in this save. He gets 12. Daryl Dike getting 12. Interesting player to appear with double digits in the Premier League. We'll jump to assists, which is led by Mo Salah. I don't think he added any more in the last 6 or 7 games. He just stayed on 13. He tops assists at the age of 35. Erling Haaland providing for Benjamin Sesko as well as scoring his own goals. He gets 10 assists, alongside quite a few players actually. And they're all English in Ward-Prowse, Doyle, Foden and Kane. So well done the English lads popping up on the assists. Key passes does end up being topped by Osam Sarawi, and Yassine Adli stays in second, but Bukayo Saka actually jumped up towards the end of the season. Along with Ward-Prowse and Doyle, they moved up as well. We see, what's the other one? Chances created, that's the one. Leon Bailey actually ends up topping chances created for Aston Villa with 18, getting 8 assists on those. Kai Havertz, 17 and 9. Marcus Rashford, 16 and just 2 assists. Morgan Gibbs-White, 16 and just 4 assists. Please, somebody buy Morgan Gibbs-White. He should not be playing Championship football. He has been far, far too good. He deserves to be playing top-flight football. Daniel Jefferson leading fouls, by the way. That's quite impressive. I don't really know how that's happened. Defending-wise, Jordan Zamora actually ends up topping the tackles chart ahead of Sergio Carrera and Francisco Ortega. Key tackles, 5 players, 2 Newcastle, and 2 Liverpool in Christian Romero, Roger Ibanez, and then Trent Alexander-Arnold and Andy Robertson. Sebastian Vegas in there as well for Aston Villa. Couple guys on key headers are Morato and Ben White. You can see interceptions, Bogard, who apparently went in goal at one point. There's Harry Pickering again. Is another Premier League side going to pick him up? Maybe. Robin Gosens actually highest headers won ratio percentage. And then Tariq Lamptey ends up topping the fouls just ahead of his own teammate, Owen Wijndal. So Newcastle just kicking people out here, apparently. We'll look at the goalkeeper stats as well. Clean sheets. The Golden Glove just goes to Ederson with 17 clean sheets in his 36 starts and 1 sub-appearance. Okay. Andre Onana plays 37, gets 16 clean sheets. And then Edouard Mendy, 37 as well, as he gets 13. This is something I didn't note. David De Gea is Everton goalkeeper. Was that a free transfer? Nice got him on a free, and then Everton got him for less than $1 million. He hasn't been great, but he's not been absolutely horrendous either. That's interesting. David De Gea, Everton goalkeeper. Okay, and then we're going to finish it off with the expected goals prevented, which actually ends up being topped by Andre Onana. Edouard Mendy actually fell off a little bit, down to 10, although Ederson also there on 10 as well. Much better season from Matvei Safonov. He actually only played 12 games, so ignore that. It was Alvaro Fernandez, wasn't it? Oh, what am I doing? I'm clicking all the wrong things. There we go. Yeah, so Fernandez and Safonov. Mostly Fernandez, but Safonov played really well when he came in as well. So that was a big step up for Spurs there. Not a lot of goalkeepers making great influences on their teams. George Dromwell did well for Burnley. Robert Sanchez doing well for Brighton. We've still got like Sander Berge here, which is weird, and Malero Bogard. I don't really know why they're here. Mads Hermansen is a keeper, right? Yeah, okay, there we go. I think that's the takeaway from this. Just interesting to see 2 outfield players in a goalkeeping statistic. But that is the end of the 2027-28 season. We'll be saying goodbye to Crystal Palace, Reading and Wolves. Manchester City regain their crown after 2 seasons without it. They topple Chelsea. We've got 5 Champions League teams and 2 Europa League teams, which is going to make Europe interesting again next season. But I think the standout man, his first season here in England, Benjamin Sesko. How is he going to be stopped? And how is Vincent Kompany's Manchester City going to be stopped anytime soon? Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. If you've made it through all the way, thank you so much for sticking with it. If you do like it, do hit like, subscribe to the channel and share the video as well. And as always, have a good one and hopefully catch you in the next one.